What's going on, everybody? It is the spoiler-heavy review for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Thank you for joining me on the channel. I appreciate you. This is, spoiler-heavy, obviously. If you haven't watched the movie, and you shouldn't be here, but if you are watching it because you've seen the movie and you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, show a little class and subscribe. Just an ounce. That's all we're asking for over here. It doesn't cost you nothing. And you get out of the theater reactions, you get trailer reactions, you get long-form content, all of that and more. And you get the spoiler-heavy review here today of Ant-Man and the Wasp. It's very interesting. This movie is very divisive thus far. If you look, it is the second MCU film that has scored rotten on Rotten Tomatoes, that and the Internals, which is interesting to me, that it's not something like Thor Love and Thunder or Thor Dark World, or, I don't know, Iron Man 2, I remember a lot of people didn't like when that came out. I didn't mind that movie, but when it came out, and the fact that those were all fresh, and those were the two that were rotten, surprised me, because I enjoyed watching this film. I did. Do I think it's great? No, I don't. Do I think there's a lot of flaws to it? Sure. Could I probably go and scale back and say maybe a 3.5 out of 5? Maybe, after thinking about it and kind of in depth, but I enjoyed watching it. Take nothing away from the fact that this is a very crazy, chaotic movie. I think it ties up nicely. I like it better than the second one, to be honest with you. A lot of people love the second one, the second Ant-Man. I thought it was too joke heavy. A lot of people had a problem with this. There wasn't enough jokes. Some of the jokes in this movie I thought worked well. There were others. Let's just get right to the fact with MODOK, right? Let's talk about MODOK. Now, if MODOK worked for you and you loved MODOK, then you might have an opportunity that you might end up liking this movie more than you thought. If you didn't like MODOK, then there's no chance you like the movie. I don't think. That's what I'm guessing. Because when it came to MODOK, now, if you were familiar with MODOK, I think, as if you're a comic book fan, this is what I want to ask you guys. For people who saw the movie who had no clue who the hell MODOK was, right? Was it too jarring for you? Did you find it funny at all? Did you find the story redeeming at all? Because I feel like he's one of the only characters in this film that really had an arc, and especially from all three movies with them using Corey Stoll. And I feel that if you knew the character, though, that you knew he's supposed to be kind of goofy, look the way that he does, he is kind of even though he's an assassin and he kills the same way that MODOK does in this, that he's a bit of a goof. And the difference is in the comic books, it's not Darren Cross. It's some other like assassin or something too. So it didn't bother me because I had no attachment to it in the comics. I thought that there was for the most part, I thought MODOK worked for me. I didn't mind the CGI on it. I know a lot of people really thought the CGI was shit. I didn't think it was. I thought it was fine. I thought he looked goofy. I think he was supposed to. There was two jokes at the end of the movie that got big laughs in the theater when I saw it. One of them I said, it was funny, but I just maybe out of place, and that was the whole arc of the reason why he turns into the good guy. It's because Cassie says to him, don't be a dick. And he's like, oh, okay, I've been a dick pretty much the entire first movie, and nobody could talk me out of it. And now when I should be even more angry, it's funny, so I'm going to decide that I don't want to be a dick, and I don't like the way Kank's talking to me, so I'm not going to be a dick anymore. It's a weird turn. So I wasn't crazy about that. The line that I did like was when he was dying and then saying, I'm an Avenger now. And Ant-Man's like, well, I don't know. He's like, I'm an Avenger now. He's like, okay. That to me worked because it was more relevant in the moment. So there were certain things like that worked, but I think that was the reason why I liked this one as opposed to it felt like in Ant-Man 2, everybody was joking it every single time. And there were some serious moments in this. And Kang was one of those main reasons, right? Jonathan Majors is a phenomenal actor. I mean, he just is. And he brings such a weight to this character. And I think that the first two acts of this movie were way stronger than the third. I think that the problem with the third act of the movie is that it runs into the same trap that a lot of movies do, is that, okay, well, we built up as much as we could right now. Now we need a big grand scale action scene now for the Marvel movie, and let's just go crazy, and now we'll bring in the rebels and the resistance, and we'll make Ant-Man huge now, and all these big battles, and boom, 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 loud, and you lose a lot of, the weight again that has been set up since the beginning of the movie, and I think that Kang suffers from it. I think Kang is set up so well, and I think that everything and the reason you care about him at all. I mean, I didn't necessarily care about him, but the reason that you're invested in him is because of Jonathan Majors and the performance that he brings in. He's just the superstar. But I feel like he's defeated pretty easily by ants. I don't know. It was a little underwhelming, considering how much they were building him up. You have this whole setup, and he doesn't really use his time travel powers the way maybe we thought that he could or would. And that was a little bit of a bummer, but it was the stuff that worked for me. It was the stuff with him and Janet and the setup of how he was there and why he was there. And that whole setup of the quantum realm, by the way, is another thing that I thought was set up well, and I liked. And the reason why it resonated with me, and the reason why I enjoyed watching it, is I'm a science fiction guy. I like science fiction. Some people say it's science fiction. Other people say it's science fiction fantasy. I think there's a mixture of both because there's so much of the quantum physics and all of that in general, and how that particularly works with time, and then there's obviously the alien type of feel that made it feel like at times you were in the cantina at Star Wars, and I think that was an intentional, and that stuff, the setup of the world, I really liked a lot. And I liked the idea that they took this big swing into science fiction, and when they show up to the quantum realm, and I like how fast we got into the quantum realm, by the way, too. I really enjoyed that. I liked that it was funny because even though, as I mentioned a couple times in this review already, and I've mentioned in the past with Ant-Man 2, that everyone had a joke. One of the things in Ant-Man 2 is felt like they just, in the first Ant-Man, they used Michael Pena and David Dastmalchian and T.I. I thought they used them really well as his crime heist team. In the second one, they were almost there for just comic relief. But I'm not going to lie, I missed them. I missed them. Did they need to be in the quantum realm? No. But Jimmy Woo was there in a cameo. Like, David Dastmalchian was in the movie as Ooze. So the fact that they didn't show those guys at all, I was bummed. Did it hurt the movie? Not necessarily, but it would have been nice to see them, or at least see Michael Pena a little bit, considering how much they tied a lot in. They didn't show any of Judy Greer. They didn't show any of Judy Greer's husband. They didn't show any of that stuff. But they did get into the quantum realm fast, and that's what I enjoyed. I liked the setup. I liked that the first scene is basically, the first scene is setting up how Kang and Janet, and seeing her, a younger Michelle Pfeiffer, who was fantastic in this, by the way. She's, as I said before, that I think MODOK had a big arc. I think Janet had the biggest arc, and I think Michelle Pfeiffer steals the show in this entire thing because of what Janet is going through. And the idea that she had this massive secret and she didn't want to tell anybody about Kang and wanted to stay away from the quantum realm, and knew the second cast, he's like, well, I can communicate. She's like, you can communicate with the quantum. What are you doing? Before she could say anything, they suck back in, and we see that it's because of Janet that they had two things. It's because of Janet that this whole kind of society was set up, but it's also because of Janet that Kang didn't get out. And learning that backstory of how Kang was there. And I loved that moment where Janet touches the ship and can see it and see all the time and feel stuff like that. I wish they did more of. As I mentioned before, you could do stuff with Kang where you could jump with him into different time realms and show what he was capable of. But getting into the quantum realm as fast as they did, and the way that they did it, I thought was very effective. And I thought that it didn't, you saw the Baskin-Robbins stuff, and that Ant-Man wrote his book, but you didn't have to spend enough time there to say, okay, we're going to be here for a half an hour, and then we're going to spend another 2 hours in the quantum realm and do another 2.5-hour Marvel movie. This movie's just a little over 2 hours, 2 hours long, and it was good timing. But as I mentioned beforehand, and to get into it now, I think that, first of all, they showed way too much in the trailer. Way too much in the trailer of that whole moment when he says, Ant-Man says, I don't have to win, we just both have to lose. You're expecting it, and by the time it happens, it has less weight. Again, with the weight. But it doesn't have, the impact's gone, because I knew that was coming. And it's like, oh, well, we know that that's it. We know he gets defeated. And the fact that it's Wasp that comes and saves him, the reason why, at least I think, is they were like, what is, this movie's called Ant-Man and the Wasp. Again, but if you look at the script and everything we've done so far, she doesn't really do anything except rescue him twice, and that's really it. But because she's rescuing him twice, it's enough impact that we can still call it Ant-Man and the Wasp. Evangeline Lilly isn't really used that much in this at all. She's there kind of with her parents as her parents are we're trying to figure out Janet's secret, and she's just like, what's going on? And the Bill Murray scene, which is a good scene, but then she doesn't really have much to do. So when she finally saves him at the end, you're like, oh, of course she saved him because it's Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't know. It just didn't have that kind of the kind of impact I think that they wanted it to. And the relationship with Cassie and Scott, I think, is strong, but it is also, I don't think, played off of enough. Because when you see these trailers and you see what Kang was going to offer Scott Lang, you see that he was going to offer him more time with his daughter, because it made sense. He lost all that time with her. In the first Ant-Man, he was in jail. In the second one, he was in house arrest. In the third one, or even in between, everybody was blipped, and he was caught in the quantum realm for 5 years, and he comes out, and he's lost a lot of time. So you feel for him, but that wasn't explored that much. The relationship you see, I think Paul Rudd's fantastic in it, and I think that he has a really good relationship with her, and it plays, and you see that he cares about her. And then I liked the balance of how they used her at the end. I was worried that they were just going to go, okay, let's kill Paul Rudd, and now Cassie will be the new Ant-Man. I was like, no, they were able to be effective to show how that she has her dad's tendencies, that she does. She got arrested, but it was because of the protest, but she's still very, she's really smart and knowing how to use the stuff. She's got a suit, and he's kind of training her in between, and she gets, it's a nice moment between them when she gets tall, and he talks about how hungry they get. I liked all that stuff. I thought that stuff worked. I was watching it at one point, though, at the end going, there's a lot happening right now. There really is so much happening. And it's almost like Kang's just kind of sitting back watching for a little bit, and then he finally gets involved, and he starts blowing people away with his lasers. A bunch of extras. There's no really big impact, emotional impact from any of our characters. Nobody dies, whether it's Hank or Scott or Janet or nobody dies, and there's no real consequences to it. And they take out Kang. You're like, oh, and then you get to the post-credit scene when there's 75,000 Kangs, and even that scene. I like that they set it up where you see, I think it sets up to the average viewer. They go, okay, wow, there's a lot of them. Because if you don't watch Loki and you don't watch all this other stuff, you're like, oh, so there's just a ton of Kangs that are going to keep coming in. And I think that they do that well up top, and then they show like all the Kangs, and they're screaming and yelling, and they're all wearing different costumes, and it almost played a little silly, but it still, to me, had the impact that they wanted. I thought the second post-credit scene was better because I'm a Loki fan, and I like that series a lot, and I thought it was more subtle, and it showed a little bit more like, oh, he's going to be everywhere, this guy, and it's Loki now and Mobius who are sitting there watching, going, no, that's the guy. Let's figure out how to, what version of him is this? Is this a version that is a kind of a better guy, the way that He Who Remains, or is this going to be someone like Kang the Conqueror? There's a lot. I mean, there really is a lot. And a lot of people are wondering, like, the last few movies. Now, I will say, it's not a great movie. But as I said, to me, what I liked about it was the fact that I felt like it's a movie that I can just go and I could watch, and I can escape into this science fiction realm. And I just liked watching it in the movie theater, and I thought it looked good, and I thought the music was fantastic, and I thought that there was some fun visuals and all that. But coupled with everything I just said there is something about the MCU right now that I think it makes sense that they're starting to scale back now and say, we have way too much going on, and we're relying on people to watch everything right now, and we have to push things. We have to tell the story in shorter, or take our time and tell it. And I think that's the reason why the Marvels was pushed, and the reason why they're not releasing 4 shows this year and only like 2 now. I think it's the smart move, because I think that people are starting to get bombarded, and I also think there's a lot of pressure on the team, and I think that the kind of detail that was put into these movies in the past has taken a hit in a bit, because there is stuff missing. I would still rank it out of the 3 movies. I still like this one, to me. The reason why I think 2 works because the way how well it connects into Endgame and how well it connects with the relationship with Ant-Man and the Wasp, and how the Wasp has a lot to do. There's a lot. We just rewatched it recently, so there's a lot in there that actually really works. But as I mentioned, I'm a science fiction guy, and I liked just spending time in this different world inside the MCU. And I don't know if it's a matter of if there's too much of the same old Marvel stuff, because I liked Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I liked it. I loved the first one. I liked the second one. I did not like Thor: Love and Thunder, and it's another one of those movies that, the more and more, whether it's talking about it or even I've only seen it once and have not rewatched it. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, same thing. She-Hulk, not good. And then there's a bunch of shows that work for me. I thought Ms. Marvel was good. I thought these other shows, obviously WandaVision to me and Loki are the two best, and they had some other things that worked, but there's just so much of it now that it doesn't maybe have that spark that it did beforehand. And it's a bummer, because this one I think my biggest bummer with this was the time wasn't used in the way that maybe it could have been, because of the way it was set up in that Loki series and how that Kang would use it. Jonathan Majors was powerful, but Kang wasn't as devastating. And as I said in my non-spoiler, and I mentioned this a few times over, I've said in my non-spoiler that they're setting Kang up. He needs to be more devastating than Thanos. He needs to be. Now, in my non-spoiler, that's what I said. I do not think that he's reached that potential yet. I think that he could, if they set it up in enough shows, enough movies, but he's not there yet. Thanos is the GOAT. We know that. Thanos was devastating, and Thanos was set up sporadically over the course of what it was. I don't know, 7 years. So I still think it's a good start to Phase 5, though. I really do, because I think that Kang is introduced well enough in this movie that now, with the movies that are coming out, if they space them out, they can bounce back from it. But I don't know. Remember, Marvel was like untouchable for a very long time, and both critically and financially. I still think this movie's going to, at this point, you will know how it did on Friday night. But I still think that at that point of it, people still are going to want to go see these movies. But it's not that titanium based, movie franchise anymore. It's got vulnerability now, and this proves it. I mean, the last few, this included, even though I enjoyed watching it, it's still, there hasn't been a great Marvel Cinematic Universe movie since No Way Home, and that was a Sony movie. The last, I think, great Marvel movie, MCU movie that came out, last great one was probably Endgame. And that's, now we're working on what? 4 years now. So I think that pulling back is a good idea. I think, I feel, and this is what I want to hear from you guys in the comments. I feel that if you hate this movie, you hate this movie, and there's nothing you can do about it. You don't like it. Understood. And I said that as much when I got out of the theater. There'd be a bunch of idiots in here to just say things like, hey, of course you liked it. And I give my reasons why I liked it and I enjoyed watching it. And then there'll be other people who say, oh, you're being too hard on it. You're being too hard on it. It's just a movie. And just telling you my thoughts, everybody. But my question to you guys, let's have an actual conversation about it, to those people who want to have a conversation. If you didn't like it, what didn't you like about it? What did you feel? Did you feel that it was just too chaotic, too crazy, not enough character development? And if you did like it, did you feel that it was? Does anybody think it was a great movie? I'd like to hear those people's thoughts also. Did you really enjoy it? And if so, why? And then last, if you liked it and just thought it was okay, and maybe you agree with me, tell me your reasons also. I want to see the full-on conversation, because I'm really interested. This one is having that same kind of conversation, I think, like the Eternals had, and even more so. And I think that I saw and I don't know what it is now after more people have seen it, but as of Friday, the audience review on Rotten Tomatoes was something like 80%, and then there was something a little lower than 50% from critics. So it's going to be an interesting conversation overall. How about you guys? What do you think? Overall, let me hear it. I got to hear it. I'm going to try to respond to as many as possible. I'm going to put this up. I'd probably put this up tonight, Friday night, or even Saturday morning. I don't know yet. You'll know when it comes out, I guess. But that's it, man. That's the spoiler review for Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yeah, she's in it. Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. What'd you guys think? Did you love it? Let me know. And if you haven't already done so, hit that button, man. Show a little class. Subscribe to the channel. I appreciate you so much. Check out any of our other content here, and we'll talk to you soon. Monday, we're doing a full episode, spoiler episode of this with myself, Coy Jandro, and Winston A. Marshall. So check us out. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Peace.